Hey guys, what's up? We didn't say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, or anything like that in the last video. So I hope everybody is enjoying their break. I hope everybody's gonna have a great New Year's. Be safe, don't drink and drive, all that good stuff, and enjoy time with your family, etc. We hope everybody's having a great time. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Nash and Arnold's. Today we're wrapping up day 2 of this week. So it was, the hell did I do? Pin squats, incline bench, chain deadlifts, chain bench, and some seated chest supported rows. Today actually went really well. Pin squats are still kind of here nor there. I'm having a hard time getting a decent setup. I think today was a little bit high in terms of my depth on most of my pin squats, but it felt mostly good, and I feel like I'm right in that point where if I transition properly, it's not a painful rep, but if I muck it up, it is a painful rep. So that's probably a really good point for me to kind of be working on to get through the hip issue, or at least to continue training through it and training around it. So I worked up to 232.5 kilos on that. Did some drop volume. Top set was 207.5 for a triple, and then 197.5 for a triple. After that, I did some incline bench, and incline bench has been going really well. It's a pretty slight incline. It's like the first notch on our rogue bench. And actually that's feeling really good. It feels good on my shoulder. It feels like good patterning work in terms of how to properly bring the bar back and groove it off the chest to make sure it gets into a good sort of leverage position right off the chest. So I'm really happy with how that's going. I think I hit 135 for a single, and then dropped to 125 for a set of 5, which I was pretty stoked about, and then 120 for a set of 5 as well. So the incline bench is on the up and up, and that's a good thing because I've been generally have been pretty weak on that movement, so it's kind of fun to push it for a while. It's not something I've done a lot of, and I'm seeing a lot of adaptation, because if you're terrible at something and you do it, there's a lot more room for you to get better at it, so that makes it fun. From there I did some chain deadlifts, and chain deadlifts today went really well. It's probably the best pull against chains that I've done this cycle. It's 320 kilos, plus about, I think it's 45 kilos in chain weight. So it's close to 800 at the top. Moved really well. Hook grip held, my balance was good. And it didn't quite feel like my back was gonna just snap in half, which often is kind of an exaggeration, but I get a lot of back work out of deadlifting beltless. So I dropped and did a set of 4 actually at 292.5. And that's honestly, that top set of 4 at 9 against chains is probably the hardest thing I do all week. The first rep usually feels like it should be a 10. Like there's this discrepancy between, I know I can do more, but in my head it's like, man, just stop, that was way too heavy. But I mean, if you watch the footage, it really wasn't that bad. It's just one of those things where it feels so friggin' heavy. But yeah, so it moved decently well, definitely a 9. And then I dropped to 277.5 for another set of 4 there, and it wasn't quite as bad, but that was chain deadlifts. Then I threw the chains on the bench and worked up to a single at 140. So I switched my chains last week, and they're about 32 kilos in chains now, whereas before I think it was 22, 23 kilos. So an extra about 10 kilos in chains. And last week I was able to get away with a single at 145. I called it an 8 in my logbook, but after how 140 felt today, I think I was lying to myself. 140 felt like about an 8, good 8. And then after getting egged on repeatedly by Dylan, I went up anyways, put 147 on there. So it would have been about 180 at the top, and it was definitely a 9.5. You know, maybe could have snuck out one more there. Probably would have been real gross, but the rep in question, the 147.5, moved technically well. It was not fast by any means, but it moved technically well. So it grooved well, my shoulders didn't. I get some impingement and some weird stuff going on in my shoulders there if I don't bench just so properly. So that was good. It was heavy, and I was able to kind of muscle through it and keep everything in position, and it moved well, and everything was even, and blah, blah, blah. Came down to 130, 130 something? 130. Yeah, I think just 130 for a triple there against the chains, and then 122.5 for another triple against the chains. Then I finished off with some chest supported rows, which, like I mentioned in the last video, I've really been digging. Got up to about 150 pounds a hand. I don't have kilo plates over there, so you guys will have to forgive me for using freedom units. But yeah, that's about it for training today. I've been making a point of really trying to make sure that I have fun training. I spent a long time just thinking about competitive goals and not really getting a lot of reward in terms of, you know, just having fun training. So I've been really trying to be conscious of having fun and kind of getting into a bit of a goofy mood with a lot of my training lately. And believe it or not, it makes training a lot easier. It makes it less of a drudge through training. Just being able to kind of like laugh and goof off and air guitar and whatever. So I'm pretty happy. I'm having a lot of fun. As such, I think I've decided to drop out of the Arnold Grand Prix. So I won't be doing the equipped 3 lift because I'd like to, for now, focus more on my raw lifting. I'd like to make Raw Worlds here in Calgary this summer, provided I make the team. I'd like to make Raw Worlds more of a focus, and to be able to focus properly on that, I think I'm going to nix the equipped training for now. I'll probably put more intent and more focus on that down the road when I have another major equipped meet in my sights. But for now, I'll be doing the pro deadlift equipped still at the Arnold. I just won't be doing the full equipped meet. That's just kind of a decision I've made in terms of where my priorities are at. So that is what it is. But that's it for today. We're gonna move on to the questions of the day. We've had a lot of questions roll in over the last little while. I've been super bad at getting back to people, so we're just gonna hammer through a bunch of them here. So somebody asked on our mobility video, where can I get this softball? And I'm imagining they're just asking, where can they get a softball? Canadian Tire, any sports store, any hardware store should have a softball. Do I use straps while warming up for the deadlift, and when do I utilize hook grip? We've done a couple videos on hook grip, or at least touched on hook grip in some videos, but what I do is I do all my warm-ups and all my volume with straps, and I use hook grip for my top singles on any exercise. So right now that's 4 top singles a week, 2 singles competition at an 8 with the belt and everything, 2 singles against chains beltless at an 8, and I try to do like a little bit of a hold at the top, make sure it's locked in and steady, and that's essentially the only way I really train my hook grip. Are you just sticking with competing equipped for the time being? No, I'm going to focus, like I said, mostly on raw for the next little while. Is Calgary Barbell open to drop-ins? Calgary Barbell is my company. I don't own this gym. This gym is owned by a really, really cool cat named Andrew. It's called the Strength Edge. Calgary Barbell is my business and an entity that operates within this gym. But yes, the Strength Edge is open to drop-ins. You can email me, bryce@calgarybarbell.com, and I can put you in touch with Andrew or schedule a time where I can meet you here. And if anybody's interested in drop-ins, they're $10 each. First visit's free. Anyways, we can discuss that more. Just send me an email. Do I use deficit deadlifts? I generally don't use deficit deadlifts for sumo because I feel like the positioning thing can really throw somebody off when positioning is so finicky with sumo deadlift. I feel like a conventional deadlifter probably benefits a little bit more from deficit deadlift, although I have recommended and used very, very small deficits with sumo lifters who maybe don't or aren't able to adapt to being faster off the floor just by using pauses. So if we use pauses in your training, we can't speed up things off the floor or get you stronger off the floor, maybe we'll try a very, very small deficit for a sumo lifter. Generally for a conventional lifter, about 2-inch deficit will be what I use. We have another question here. Is there anything I can do to improve my sumo deadlifts off the ground? We just talked about the alternative that I would usually use for sumo lifters, which would be a pause deadlift, paused about 1 inch off the floor. It's essentially like breaking the floor twice, which traditionally and generally speaking, if you're doing the sumo deadlift technically proficient, it's going to be the toughest part, breaking it off the floor. So a pause just off the floor should be the best thing to get you strong off the floor, help you work positioning, etc., etc. How long are my training sessions? They vary anywhere between about 2.5 hours to 4 hours right now. Depends on how much I'm dragging my ass and whether or not my head is in the game or not that day. How long do the sessions in my 16-week program take? It's hard to say, it really depends on the athlete. I would say anywhere between an hour and a half to 3 hours. Again, depending on how depending on how much your head is in it, and you know, whether you're timing your rests or you're just kind of socializing between sets. How about some overhead press to strengthen my bench? I've done a lot of overhead pressing. I feel like it works wonders for my shoulder health. It makes my shoulders feel very good. I have found that even pushing it in like heavy sets of 5 throughout a developmental block is not super, doesn't really carry over that much to my bench press. For some people it very well might, but for me the overhead press wasn't sort of like a magic breakthrough for my bench press or anything. So, and we're just gonna do one more here because this video is probably getting pretty lengthy. How to adjust volume and training when mildly or moderately sick. In terms of how to adjust your training or your volume and things like that when you're sick, honestly, just don't beat yourself into the ground. Your priority should be to get healthy. Do what you can in the gym, maybe go in, just go through the motions. Don't stress yourself out. I mean, if you're close to a meet, obviously you're gonna probably have to put more priority on training and then work on added recovery outside of the gym. But if you're not coming up on a meet or peaking and there's nothing pertinent in the future, then just take some time off. Just relax, cut your sessions in half, trim your volume down, use a little bit less weight. Get healthy, man. Enjoy your training. Last question, because I get asked this a lot, Instagram DMs and whatever else. I'm about 5'10" tall and I compete in the 105 kilo category. So I walk around between 105 and 108 on a given day, I'd say. That's it for me, guys. I'm getting tired of hearing my voice talk. So we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.